Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is a quick cold and dark startup guide for the PMDG Boeing 737 for a flight from San Diego to Vegas. So let's hop in the cockpit and I will show you how to get started. So from a cold and dark state, we're first going to go to our EFB here on the left, and we're going to click on electronic flight bag. We're going to load in our flight plan from simbrief.com by clicking on request data from Simbrief. There you go. That's going to load in all of your waypoints and the flight plan into your EFB. While that's happening, we'll go ahead and click on the weather departure for San Diego, and we'll be referencing this weather information for our flight setup. All right, next we're going to go back to the home page and then go to ground operations. And here we're just going to set up our ground power. So click on ground power and request that. That's going to connect. And then if you're using GSX at this point, you can go ahead and request boarding. And if you do not want to use GSX, you have all of your ground services options that are built into the PMDG all within this page. So feel free to explore that. Okay, with that, let's go to the overhead. You can now see we have the blue light above the ground power. But first, we're going to get the battery turned on, which is right here. We'll click on the battery, make sure that is now guarded. And then we'll move down here and activate the ground power. All right, we're going to move on up. We're basically be doing a flow from top left down to the bottom right. So starting at the top of the overhead panel, I'm going to first get our IRS display set to HDG SDS. This is optional, but what is not optional is making sure our IRS is set to nav. This is very, very important. Once that says align, we'll continue moving down on the left here, and we'll find the yaw damper. We'll get the yaw damper turned on, and then we'll continue down the left side of the overhead panel until we get to our fuel pumps, and we'll get that second forward fuel pump turned on. Just that one, that's all good. And then we'll just slide to the right here where we see APU, and we'll hit the down arrow for APU start. Hold it down for a few seconds. That should get started. While the APU is starting, it does take a couple minutes to do so. We'll continue with our flow going back to the top of the overhead panel. Here where it says the panel lighting, we'll get panel lighting if we need it. We'll continue going down. We got our emergency exit lights to armed and covered. There we go. We'll also get our fasten seatbelt signs to on, and our no smoking signs also to on. We'll also continue. That's all for that section. We'll go to the top again, and we'll hit our window heat. So window heat, all four of these switches are going to turn on. Beautiful. All right, now we see our APU gen bus light is on, so we can go ahead and click on the middle two buttons, and that's going to pop on our APU gen. Now that our APU gen is on, we'll go back to the top right here, to the right of the window heat, and we'll go to our packs. And make sure our left pack is in auto, our right pack is in auto, and our ISO valve is in the on position, which is the down position for open. And we'll continue down and hit our APU bleed to on. And then to our pressurization panel here, which currently says 10,000. You can set this to your cruise altitude for your flight. For us today, that is 29,000 feet. So we'll scroll this up till we get to 29,000 feet. And then we'll go down to our landing altitude, which is our landing altitude at our destination airport, which is Vegas for us today. And ours is going to be 2,000 for our landing altitude elevation. So set that to 2,000. Next up, we'll get our external lights. So if it's nighttime, you can get the logo light on. But we're just going to get our position lights or nav lights into steady, which it already is. And the rest will stay off. And that is it for the overhead. We now have air conditioning and power to the aircraft. We'll clear the master caution and dive into the FMC. If you want to fly airliners, you're going to have to get used to using this computer right here. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and just clear out that message, and we'll click on FMC here and then go to position initialization on the bottom right, and then we're actually going to go to the next page. So we'll hit next page and then copy the GPS left, so click on the button next to that. Now go to previous page, and then we're going to click on the button next to the open boxes. That's going to paste what's in our scratch pad down here into our set IRS position, just like that. And then we'll click on the routes. Nice. And again, if you are using Simbrief, which is a much faster way, you can click on flight plan request, and you can see I have my Simbrief route right here. So I'm going to click on that. That's going to import all my Simbrief data, including our payload, our fuel. To actually load that data to our aircraft, we need to click on set payload. Very important to click set payload, or else you will not actually load the aircraft. We'll clear that out. Hit set fuel. That will set our fuel. You can see here now our fuel is showing 14.3. That's 14,300 pounds. We also show that here for our block fuel, 14.3. So that is correct. And we'll hit clear there and select route. And now we can just wait here on the screen until we see load pop up on the bottom left. All right, and there it is. Load route uplink ready. So we'll click on load. That's going to load our flight plan into our flight management computer, or FMS. Takes a few seconds to do that. Once it's done, we can go ahead and click activate, and then we'll have a light above execute. We'll hit execute. All right, now we're going to go to click on DEP R, or departure arrival button right here on your keyboard. And we're going to go ahead and put in our departure and arrival. Whenever you input a flight plan on any airliner into your flight management computer, it only brings in the flight plan, but not the departure and arrival sections of the flight plan. So we'll click on departure first. And for our flight today, from San Diego to Vegas, our departure, I'll go to the next page here, is going to be the Padres 2 with the chicken transition. We'll click on that, and we'll be expecting runway 27. And execute. Now we'll click index again to bring us back to our departure arrival index page. We'll click on the arrival next to Las Vegas, the second one, not the top one. So we'll click here. And per my flight plan that I got from SimBrief, I need the RNDRZ 4 star and the Mysing transition. I am planning for the next page here, ILS Yankee 26 left, and the Bourbon transition. And execute that. Now that that's done, we'll click on route again. This brings us back to our main flight plan page. If I hit the next page, we can see that all my flight plan is in here. I'm gonna click on perf init for our performance initialization, and we'll click on perf init request here on the bottom right. That's gonna request our perf initialization based on the data we brought in earlier. And once that uplink is ready, we'll go to the bottom left and hit load. Again, you could do all of this manually if you want, but I'm trying to show you guys the easiest, fastest way to get the aircraft set up. So I'm showing you kind of the shortcuts. But if you want to learn the down and dirty how to do it manually, there's many great tutorials out there for that. And let me know if you need that, because I can make that too in the future. Anyways, that is now done. We hit execute again. That's all important. We can double check these numbers, make sure they're correct, but they are. And next we'll go to N1 limit. This is where you can put in your D rate, but we're not going to worry about that today. So we're going to skip this page and go to our takeoff page. And now usually in the 737, you'll take off with flaps 5 in most cases. So I'm using flaps 5 today. We'll click next to flaps to insert our 5. And then we'll click the dash lines next to CG. That'll automatically bring in our CG. We'll click on it again to paste that in there. And that's going to give us a trim of 4.75. I'll show you in just a second how to put that in. Next, we'll go to the right side where we have our V speeds, 140, 42, and 51, and click on the dash lines next to that, and that'll automatically paste those in. PMDG makes this very easy to do. And now that we've done that, let's put it in our trims. I'm just going to zoom out here. So our trim is right here. This massive lever, or like circle thing, is a trim. Right now, our trim is set to 4. And we need to be at 4.75. So you need to have something mapped to trim nose up and trim pitch down as well. And I'm going to do that now. And if I do, here we go, I'm going to hold the trim button until I get to 4.75-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're there. All right, beautiful. Now that the trim is set, we'll go ahead and set up our radios. So if you're flying with ATC, it's very important that you get your radio set up. It's pretty easy. By default, it's already kind of activated. You just got to put in your frequency. I'm going to put my frequency for 1348 just to pick up the weather ATIS here in San Diego. So we'll scroll the big wheel and the little wheel as needed. And we'll click on the arrow to cycle between.
Advise on initial contact, you have information pop-up. Wind 300.
All right, we have information pop-up. Switching back over to San Diego ground, and we'll get our IFR clearance at this point.
Southwest 116, read back correct. Contact ground on 123.9 or when ready.
All right, we got our IFR clearance, and they want us to squawk 5324, so we can go down here to our transponder to set our squawk code. So 5, we got the 3 already, and the 2 and the 4, and we'll leave it on transponder mode for now. Onto our autopilot panel, per what ATC gave me, they gave me an altitude of 6,000 feet for our initial climb. So it's going to scroll this big button here until we get to 6,000 feet. The weather we got for the barometric pressure was 29999, which is located right here in green, but the knob is up here where it says baro. So I'm going to scroll that knob while I'm looking down here. So 29999. And you may have to put it in twice, depending on your settings. Here it is, 1 time and 2 times. Next, we're going to set our autopilot speed, which is on the left, IAS Mach. And for takeoff, you're going to set that to your V2 speed, which for us is 151. So we'll set that to 151. And then our heading is going to be set to our runway heading, which we can find on the San Diego chart for runway 27, which is 275. And then we'll get our flight directors on the left and on the right. With that, we are ready for pushback, or almost. Let's make sure the doors are closed. You have your door management here. Again, if you're using GSX, they'll close your doors automatically. So I'll go back to ground connections and I'll remove the ground power unit. Let's set our brakes by holding down the toe brakes on our rudder pedals and then clicking the parking brake. And then we can remove our wheel chocks. Alright, and before we push, we're going to go to the overhead one more time and get our fuel pumps all on. Hydraulic pumps turned on. We'll come down here and get our anti-collision lights or our beacon lights turned on. Check and make sure your transponder is on transponder. And release parking brakes. And now, while we're pushing back, we are ready for engine startup. To do so, we'll go back to the overhead panel and make sure we get both of our packs turned off. So pack left and pack right are both going to go into the off position. And we'll make sure that our ISO valve is in the down position, which is open. And then we'll go down here to our engine start and hit ground. We can then go down here to our engine information panel here, and we'll see that we have N2 rotation and N1 rotation. When we get to 25% on the N2, we will go down here and we'll take this number 2 fuel cutoff switch and move it into the up position. Alright, there's 25%, so we'll click here, move it up to the idle position, and that will continue the engine start for engine number 2. Once that number 2 engine or that right side engine is done starting, it will automatically switch back to the off position. And to get the left engine started, we will then go back up to our pack panel here, and we'll get our right pack set to the middle position or auto, and our isolation valve actually to the up position, which is going to be closed. And then we're going to go down to our left engine starter and hit ground. We can now see that we have N2 rotation again, and our N1 is rising, and then we complete do the same process. So wait for 25% here on N2. Once it does that, we'll be prepared to raise the left fuel lever. There it is, 25% up to idle. Again, when engine start is complete on the number 1 or the left engine, that'll go back to the off position automatically. We're then going to go up here to the left and get our generator switches on. So our left gen and our right gen turned on. If you have fuel in the center pumps, you can now turn those on. I'm going to slide back up here to the top right and get our probe heat left and right turned on. If anti-ice is needed, you can now turn those on at this point. If not, we'll continue back to our pack controller here and get our left pack to auto, our isolation valve to auto, and going down to our APU bleed to off. And then sliding back over to the left, we'll get our APU switch set to off. And if you followed everything I said so far, you should be able to click this big black box, which is going to go recall, and it should return back to just a black box. If you have any yellow text in there, that means you missed a step or something is done wrong, most likely on the overhead. Okay, next we'll go to our auto brake here and set that to RTO. At this point, we can also set our flaps to 5 in our case. We'll do a flight control check, right, center, left, center, forward, center, and back. Flight controls correct. Let's now get our taxi lights all on. So we'll get our runway turn-off lights and taxi lights on. We are ready for taxi. All right, brakes released. Give it a little bit of thrust, and let's get out of here. Alright, there's our runway to 7. Before we take the runway, we'll go ahead and go to auto throttle armed. We'll also go and arm our LNAV. Go to the top, we'll put our engines both into continuous. And we'll get all of our lights on. There we go. Position lights gonna go to strobe steady, and collision lights on, wing lights on, and land lights all on. We are ready for takeoff. Alright, we're taking the runway. We'll get lined up here, runway 27 on the center line. If you want, you can turn on your timer. Once you get lined up, we're actually gonna push the throttle forward until we see about 40%. So push the throttle forward just a little bit. Till we see 40% on the N1. Or close to it. There we go. And then you can press the toggle button, which is normally back here behind your throttle, but if you don't have that bound, there's also a secret toggle button right here on this screw. I'm gonna click on that screw. And you can see toggle now boxed in. And then your throttle should spool up on their own. If they don't, just push it. Like in my case, for some reason this didn't work. So push it all the way forward. Hold the center line. Airspeed is alive. You can put a little bit of forward pressure on the yoke. Just a little bit. Just 80 knots. Keep your hand on the throttle until V1.
V1 rotate.
Slightly pull back on the yoke here. Pitch for 15 degrees in the climb. When you get positive rate, we're gonna go gear up. Trim as necessary. It's a bit of nose down trim.
Contact departure.
We'll follow the magenta line here on the flight director.
Contact departure. K91 2126.
Southwest 116.
And making a right turn slightly. Alright, there's our first flap. So go up to flaps 1. And when we get to up, we can go flaps up. Still flying by hand at the moment, passing 2,000 feet. And there's up, and we'll go flaps up.
Good afternoon, climbing to 1500. Southwest 116, Lindbergh departure, radar contact.
And it looks like our auto throttle kicked off on us, so we'll turn it back on.
Southwest 116.
Keep that nose pitched up, and we'll go ahead and switch over to Autopilot now. So we'll get our AP engaged. Actually, first we'll hit VNAV. There it is. Hit Command A for Autopilot engaged. Aircraft is now flying on its own. It'll be leveling off at 6,000 feet, even though VNAV is on and LNAV is on. Our gear is up. We'll go ahead and move it to the off position now.
SoCal approach, Frontier Flight
And we'll wait for
8,000.
ATC to give us the clear to climb beyond 6,000 feet.
Radar contact.
September 3000, United Taxi 7.